We've started the Zoom with Noon. So this is our inaugural one. We have Dan Olexio with us. He is the assistant head for academic affairs. He joined Columbus Academy in 2008 and was promoted to assistant head in 2015. And he spearheaded our the Academy's move to COVID in terms of the response. Lots of work was done over the spring and summer, and even in the fall. And so he'll share some of those details with you. Just a couple of pieces of business. We have the chat feature, and we would welcome any questions as this goes on. We're going to try to keep this kind of short and to the point. But any questions that you have, please. I'm the kind of a moderator here, sharing the time with Dan. So please let us know what information you need. The final piece that I would say is we think of this as the beginning of a conversation. We're going to record this session, so please realize that you are being recorded, and we're not doing it so that we have anything else other than some information to put up on the website and send out to people. One of the most common questions that we're getting right now is, what is the school doing about COVID? So with that, again, this is the first in a series. I'll tell you a little bit more about the series when we get further along. But with that, Dan, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience here a little bit about how the planning went and what the major changes are.
Sure, thanks, John, and hello, everybody. It's great to be on this inaugural session of Zoom at Noon. As John said, this was a summer in the school preparation world unlike one we've had. The summers here are always pretty busy as we prepare for the new year, but this summer, our head of school, Melissa Soderberg, put together several task forces using the school's administrative team leaders to tackle the many problems that trying to do school in a COVID environment present. And so the task force that John alluded to that I worked with was Ms. Soderberg, myself, the three division heads from the lower, the middle, and the upper school, our director of facilities, and our director of security. And we coordinated with director of athletics and John in admissions and our assistant head for external affairs. So, but that primary core group of about 7 folks, we met once or twice a week to put together what school was going to look like. And if you remember back in June and July, the whole world was trying to figure out what return to school would look like. And there were many. It was interesting to go home and watch the news and hear half the news dedicated to the conversations that we spent all day working on. And we had at one point 7 different scenarios, which was really designed to get us to think about all the different permutations for how school might play out. But as we got closer to the start of the year, we did what I'm sure you've heard most schools have done. We said, well, really, we're going to be all online. We're going to have some sort of hybrid, or if possible, we would be all in person. And we felt that the most difficult thing for us to do logistically would be hybrid, because that would have our faculty have to think about how do we deal with students at home while students are here. And it would be easy, so to speak, to do all online. I mean, it's a lot of work, but logistically it would be much simpler. And the protocols that would have to be in place to be in a hybrid environment for the students that are here were essentially the same as the protocols that would be in place for 100% of the students on campus. So we focused really hard on a hybrid model. And so all of the things that you would imagine would go into that would be, classroom changes. Our normal class size, depending on the grade level, can be as high as 16, 17, 18 in some cases, down to maybe 10 to 12 or so. And so we audited each classroom, tried to determine what the space would allow students to be in those rooms. And so the division heads did tons of work on figuring that out. And in general, in the lower school, the smallest grades had a very small class size, 6 or 9 based on the age. And then the rest of the lower school classrooms were around 12 students. That's what the existing classrooms would hold. And the middle and the upper school did something similar. So anywhere from 12 to 14, depending on the size of the actual classroom. And then they had some other nuances that we may talk about later. But that was the big initial planning, because we knew we would need more classrooms than we have. In the lower school, they added over 20 classrooms. So we put classrooms in the gymnasium, in a wrestling room. We've put classrooms in the library and parts of the dining hall. And what used to be something we prided ourselves on, which was these wonderful community spaces for kids to go to on their free periods. You know, they're not all packed into a study hall, but many of those spaces we set up to be used for classrooms. We also did, oh, great, thanks, John. And as John scrolls through you'll see some of those. So, we needed a space expansion, and so our director of facilities worked hard to do that. Of course, he did a lot of the other things you may have heard in terms of we changed our HVAC system filters and changed the way our hallways are laid out with directional flow and staircases and hallways. If you've been to a grocery store or perhaps getting carry out at a restaurant, you've seen circles on the ground and arrows on the floor, and that's what we have done all throughout the school. And so we spent the better part of the end of the summer getting the facilities in place to receive students. But the question still remained, how many students would there be? In the lower school, we started school with about a third to a half of the kids. They would come in by grade. So the entire second grade and fourth grade and maybe kindergarten would come on one day. And then the next day, the entire first and third and pre-K. And then the next day, maybe the fifth grade and the Explorer program. And that was done to allow the students to acclimate to the protocols in a smaller group. Of course, the lower school is potted by that classroom. So that small class of 12 or so children are in that same classroom, unless they're outside learning, for the whole day. And that teacher is with those students pretty much the whole day, to include even lunch up through and including the third grade. And so they did that for a week or two. And then after that second week, the lower school went 100% in person. Because they were potted, we felt that was the best environment for them. We were able to maintain a space that was conducive to their learning. As you can see, we spent a lot of time and resources to provide new spaces outside for students to congregate, for teachers to take their classes to. Almost 15 of these sort of makeshift classrooms. We have some permanent outdoor facilities that we've always had, but those have been helpful. So the lower school has been at 100% since that second week, and continue to do so. It's a lot of work for the faculty members there, but once school kicked in, it was exciting to see the faculty who were trying to figure out how this was all going to work, to see the smile on their face when the kids showed up, and to be able to do what they love to do was reassuring. In the middle and the upper school, we phased in students a little bit more slowly. In the middle school had about a quarter to a third of their students come for what was essentially an orientation to the protocols, and sort of back to school as well. And the upper school actually had an eighth of their students. So they had a half of each of the upper school grades. And so that went on for a week or two as we got all the kids through there. And after after the middle school took 3 days to do that, the upper school took longer, but the upper school only used part of the day and then was able to start school as well. But then the upper and middle school went to 25% for both for another week or two, and then they moved to 50%. And we were at 50% all the way up until last Friday, which was our first day at 100% for the middle and the upper school. And when I say 100%, that is we are allowed to have 100% of the students. We've had maybe 10% or so of our families, for one reason or the other, have chosen to have their students attend remotely. What's nice, I think, we are able to set up the system so that if you're at home, you are still synchronously learning with the kids that are in your class. So if you decide you're going to be at home, you Zoom into the class just like we're doing now. The teacher, so I teach math in the upper school. I'll have my laptop Zoomed with maybe, well, this morning I had 3 students at home and I had 8 students in the classroom. I would project the laptop with the students that were at home, and I would connect my iPad to that classroom, and I would take some notes on the iPad that were screen shared. I can talk and listen with the kids at home, talk and listen to the kids in the classroom. When that class is over, there's an orchestrated dance of students exiting the building, be outside for a couple minutes, and then come back into the building in the middle and the upper school, because they're not able to be podded in a small group because they take a different math class and they take a different Spanish or language class or music elective. So that was the process that we used to get to where we are today. As you can imagine, we're constantly tweaking some of those protocols. At 100% last Friday, lunch was interesting. We had longer lines. They went pretty fast, but it's not something kids are used to. As John said, we're using the intercom system, which we never use. We didn't even have bells here. Everyone knew when class ended and you left and you were on your own to get to your next class in the middle and the upper school. That's just, you know, the way our school ran. But the protocols that we put in place have, I think, have given both the faculty, the students, and the parents a sense of confidence that their kids are doing what they need to do, where they need to do it, in a way that isn't putting them in undue risk. As I said, the lower school, because they're potted, they eat in their classroom. They have many of their co-curricular classes, maybe music or art, will be zoomed into that classroom with a teacher that's outside that classroom. So that's, I guess, I don't know how quick it was, but that's sort of an overview of how that all worked. John, I'm happy to answer questions you may have that prompt me things I didn't cover, and or if something came up in the chat.
Well, I hope something comes through the chat right now. Right now it's been quiet, but I want to, I came up with some questions that I think would be interesting. Can you talk about the difference between the divisions? You mentioned podding, but just to make sure that people understand the differences between what's going on in our lower school and the middle/upper schools.
Sure. The lower school, like I said, potted. The smallest Explorer program, pre-K, 6 and 9 student class sizes, but then the rest of the grades are in the lower school are around 12 students in that grade. They are all meeting together in that room, except for the co-curriculars that either pipe in or occasionally, for example, the science program is all outside. So the students go outside, and if I look out my window, I might see a science class over in the bus circle doing their science lesson. They're the 2 lower school science teachers. You know, it used to be teachers that didn't have a dedicated classroom. They'd say, I'm a teacher on a cart. Well, now they're teachers with wagons, and they pull their classroom with them, and they go out, and it's lovely. And the lower school students are used to being outside. You know, some of the upper school kids are like, what are we going to do when it gets cold? And I'm like, you're going to do what the kindergartens have done the last 4 years is you put your coat on and go outside. It's lovely out, the resources and the space. And, you know, thankfully the weather has been just amazing this fall. So that's been very helpful. So that's how the lower school is set up. The middle and the upper school is pretty much I would say, scheduled and set up the way it would always be. Students received their normal schedule before we knew what percentage would be on campus or off campus. If the classrooms, that means that you go to a class, there's a classroom transition, and then you would go to your next class, classroom transition to another class. Again, spaced out, social distancing, all occur during the transitions as well. In the event that there are more, now that we've gone to 100%, in the event that there are more students in a class than the classroom would hold, each of the teachers has a spot either right outside the door where there's still line of sight, or a student could go to sort of a study hall type environment where they could still zoom in, even though they're on campus, they could zoom into that classroom to keep the numbers correct. And so the middle and the upper school are using that model. For example, my 2 classes, my class sizes are such that all of the students fit in my class. So I thought, I won't need to use Zoom anymore. But I do have a couple students who have opted to do Zoom full time. So I'm doing the same thing. It's just the numbers have migrated, fewer online, more in the classroom. But frankly, for me, I'm looking at both. I'll look into the camera, I'll look at the class, I'll ask questions of people at home, I'll ask questions of people in the class. And so we haven't had to really curtail any of the class offerings or electives. Some of the time we devote to each co-curricular class, in some cases, particularly band and music, which are particularly challenging. The amount of time students spend in those may be slightly less than they used to, so that we could have even smaller groupings be able to do that outside in a way that's safe. I don't know, John, did that answer your question?
That's great. That's very helpful. I hope it helped me.
Great.
I'm going to ask myself a question. One of the questions that lots of people have for us is logistics in terms of getting to school. And one of the calls, many of the calls that we get ask what's happening with our bus system, what's happening with our, how are kids getting to Columbus Academy? Because we've got so many different areas. We have, over 50 different zip codes represented. And the short answer is logistics are more interesting. The school has limited the amount of time that students are here before school. In the pre-COVID days, I shouldn't say olden days, in the pre-COVID days, families could drop off their students as early as 7 o'clock. And our school day starts at 8:05. So they would go indoors, and there's it's not really a latchkey, but what our program is called a case. And so they would stay inside until 7:30, and then they'd go out for recess and be outside for about 25 minutes before coming in to start their day. Frankly, we can't do that anymore. And so what we end up doing now, students are allowed, high schoolers are allowed to come at 7:30. Lower and middle school students can enter the building at 7:45. So we've lost a little bit of flexibility there. But it goes well. Students who arrive early are actually, they're directed to one of the outdoor classrooms that we've created, and they sit there and enjoy each other's company from a social distance, and then they go in. In terms of busing, there are limits in terms of how many students can ride a bus, which fortunately for Columbus Academy, that has not presented a problem, because the capacity of the bus is great enough that with social distancing, it's all fine. But what has happened is now the buses load back to front. That we ask students to make sure to bundle up, because some windows have to be down to make sure that there's air circulating. And as they go on the bus, they are obviously washing hands, or hand sanitizer. Siblings are allowed to sit together. But it's fascinating, because as we went through our planning, and I think this is actually indicative of Columbus Academy in general, we were going down to just the finest detail. Not that we foresaw everything by any stretch, but we really did work on all of these different aspects of life here at school. Dan, maybe you can talk about the way we've done music and in the middle and upper schools, sports, because all of these activities make Columbus Academy such a rich experience. We don't want to skip those.
Yeah, great. I'll definitely talk about that. One thing I thought about while John was talking, that we talked about our plan, and then this is what we did. But a couple things I would say that I've got questions about from my friends who aren't here. Say, well, do kids really keep their masks on? It's been amazing. It's almost like we always wore masks. It doesn't seem to be inside the buildings. Kids just have them on. That's the policy, and they do it. I'm in my office. John's in his office. My door's closed. My window's open. So I don't have my mask on here. But if a student comes in to get help, I put my mask on. Or if a faculty member comes in to ask me a question, I put my mask on. So the adherence to the protocols has been great. When students go outside for class change, do we have to remind them at times to spread out a little bit? Sure. But as you can see in the pictures, and that 6 feet outside, that has been, the compliance has been great. So I wanted to share that. And then from the faculty side, in terms of the way classes go, I mean, just this morning on the news, I saw that the teachers in Gehanna-Lincoln have gone on strike. And I there's a part of me that feels a lot for the public schools, because the resources that we have control of, that we were able to put toward all the things that we needed to do to make an environment that was conducive to a COVID world and still do school, we had control over. But the hybrid model that some of those schools are having a challenge to implement, as I said, our faculty, I think, were really wondering how they would be able to do it. And it's just been exciting to watch the faculty sort of embrace something new, new technologies, new hardware, new software. And again, it seemed really daunting before kids showed up. And once the kids show up, if I'm having a problem with getting on Zoom, they say, try this, or did you do this, or switch your network connection, or whatever. And it's been great. So the execution of school has been, I would say, has exceeded my expectations, frankly, in terms of student response and our faculty's ability to deliver instruction and still stay connected with kids, right? I mean, it's when I see schools that are online all the time, I feel for the kids and frankly, the faculty. But, to be able to have the connection face to face has been great. As John said, I mean, for our what I would call our core curriculum classes, those are occurring, normally not outside, a lot of them. Science, of course, yeah, but I saw a math class, high school math class outside this morning. That's not something we've done a lot of. Some teachers have done that for specific things, but that has been great. We did, like I said, we still are doing our computer science courses online. The band and the music and journalism, the elective type courses are also done either in a hybrid environment. We have a 0 period in the high school, which is right before school, which is still happening. And so again, there are some situations, particularly band and music and orchestra, where I think the contact time has been decreased a little bit, only to enable it to still happen, right? I mean, we thought not being able to do that that doesn't afford students the opportunities they have. Art classes are all happening the way they've always happened. We have a lovely art gallery that's right outside all of the art classrooms, and that can serve as sort of an overflow space as well for some of the larger art electives. And then I'll talk briefly about our sports. We did sports all summer in very small groups of individualized groups of about, I think we started with about 6 kids. And so the same 6 kids would practice together with a coach nearby, following and this is in June, and July, following all the protocols that you would expect. At that point, they were taking temperatures and washing hands and doing all the things you need to do before practice. They'd stay with that small group, and over time, they combined a couple of those groups. And then as we responded to Franklin County and the OHSAA Athletic Association for Ohio, we followed suit with their recommendations, and we have been doing sports. We have, unfortunately, one of the main lights of this school is a Friday night football field or a Saturday afternoon soccer game with food trucks and families and kids playing on the playground next to the field. And we just aren't able to do that. We have, at most sporting events, the players are allowed 2 tickets, so to speak, per player. And so the crowds are smaller. But it's important to be able to do those sports, and kids have been able to do that. And so we're wrapping up the fall league season, and our winter sports will begin soon. Again, all of them have been modified a little bit, and some are modified the way the games or event. Cross country, for example, I know at cross country meets there are more heats with fewer kids, so there are things like that to help as well. And our practices, our kids are used to how the protocols they put in place over the summer. And I think a logical follow-on question would be, so how'd all that work out? How are you guys doing in terms of, have there been a lot of cases, positive COVID tests cases and things like that? So as you may know, Ohio has a dashboard that shows all of the positive cases for any school in the state. And if you look, you'll see 3 cases listed there for our school. And I will tell you that they collected that data after some cases that we had. So our full transparency, our number has been 6. And we do what any business or organization would do. We do our own internal contact tracing to look at the student's classroom, the teachers, the students, their sports team. We have 2 full-time on-site nurses. They do that. They notify all the families, maintaining privacy, of course, but making sure that anyone who was possibly exposed based on the CDC guidance for exposure is notified. And then those students and anyone that was in contact for the requisite amount of time would be quarantined. So like I said, we had 6 positive cases total. I can tell you that the contact tracing and the investigation of those cases found that none of them were based on things that happened off campus, right? So maybe a family gathering or friends off campus, graduates came back from their college because they weren't in college and they met up with some of their old friends who are now seniors, that sort of thing. So, we're hopeful. We do not do testing at our school. Every morning of every day, every student, parent or guardian is asked to do a health screening. So we use our phone. There's an app on our phone that you can easily do it, but essentially we're asking parents to there it is right there, take a temperature and ask about their symptoms, like you do if you go into a business or something. And it's a newer system for us technology-wise, and it's been great. It's helped us speed up some of the challenges of arrival in the morning with carpool and departure with carpool. We've had to change things that really slowed that down, but this sort of technology has helped us speed that process up.
Great. I'm glad that you did that, because check-in was the thing that I'd written down, and we were in very, very close contact with the CDC, with Franklin County Board of Health, and our nurses have been crucial in our planning and execution of this whole process. Dan, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate your help this morning, or actually I guess this afternoon. Just to let you know, we have a number of these planned. Next week, we're going to hear from Grace Gordon, who is a naturalist, and she is a lower school teacher. She was actually featured. Let me see if I can quickly grab her. It's the darling picture of kids walking in the, oh gosh, I don't want to keep everybody, but such a cute picture. There, this one. Share screen. You guys getting it right there? Okay. Anyway, that's Grace Gordon right here. And she will be talking about outdoor education and partially the COVID, it has pushed us outside. And you may hear the phrase next week, there is no bad weather, there's only bad clothing. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. This will be archived, so tell all your friends that Dan Olexio, our first star, is right there, and make him proud. Thank you all very much for coming. Please contact the admissions office when you when you would like to take a tour. We are here to obviously welcome you and appreciate your interest in Columbus Academy. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.